Hidden beneath the west end of Vermilion Avenue in Princeton, British Columbia, lay a little-known piece of history, carved not by human hands, but by the slow, patient work of nature. What erosion began, people eventually shaped into shelter and storage. These were the Vermilion sandstone caves, once a sanctuary, a storeroom, a hotel, and even almost a jail. The larger of the two natural sandstone caves stretched a full 60 feet wide and ran 100 feet deep, its ceiling sloping gently upward to a towering 20 feet at its highest point. And the floor, dry, smooth, and level, cool in the heat of summer, warm through the winter, like nature's own perfectly crafted cellar. Little is known about the second cave, other than it was smaller, and that it was lost in 1916 during the early days of development. We'll explore that moment later in the video. Long before roads were paved and trains arrived, the cave was believed to have been a sanctuary for indigenous people. For much of the 1800s, the cave stood as a dependable haven for those braving the long journey along the Cave Princeton Trail. In fact, some said this was Princeton's very first hotel. Even the local paper got in on the cave's potential uses. In 1901, a humorous editorial joked, a day or two in close confinement in the cave at upper end of Vermilion Avenue would probably convince some of these individuals that the principal street in Princeton was not the proper place to give free exhibitions or to sober up in. A natural jail for the town drunks. Not a bad idea. Over the years, the cave quietly served its purpose. Crates of apples were left to rest in the dark, riding out the freeze and thaw of changing seasons. Produce came and went. Even the town's beer, gaining a bit of fame at the time, spent some of its life cooling beneath the stone. In 1942, as fears of war reached even quiet Princeton, the cave was seen as a potential emergency shelter. The Vermilion Cave was an ideal place in an emergency such as we fear, a local editorial read. Why build shelters in exposed places, they asked, when this natural fortress lay right beneath their feet? But progress came at a price. In 1916, sandstone from the cave was mined to build platforms for the local railway station, destroying the smaller cave. And several decades later, in 1948, the construction of the trans-provincial highway between Princeton and Hope. Employing 46 men, many of them engaged in harvesting stone from the remaining cave to build the road, completely clearing it for the new highway. History was being paved, quite literally. In the end, the Vermilion Cave cellar stood as a quiet reminder of Princeton's rich and quirky past, once a shelter, a storeroom, and a stopover for adventurers. Its walls no longer echoed with the footsteps of travelers or the clink of beer bottles, but if they could have talked, oh, the stories they'd have told.